The job is carried out in a home. From next year, people will be able to avail of the National Childcare Scheme if their childminder is registered. Mairead Hurley is from Childminding Ireland. She says any changes to how the industry is regulated should consider how different it is to how other childcare settings operate.
I mean, a childminding system has to be appropriate for childminding. Centre-based and childminding are so different. Childminding takes place in a home. It's not purpose-built. It's purpose-built as a home initially. It's not a childcare setting. It's a home.
And that's your news update. It's 7:02.
NewsTalk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Suffering from the Irish rain? Grab your summer sun to Italy, Portugal or Spain with Ryanair's low fares.
Clear spells tonight with scattered showers, highs of 7 degrees Celsius. Now you're up to date on NewsTalk.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette. Start your day in flow with the new Gillette Labs razor with exfoliating bar.
This is NewsTalk.
Coming up on tonight's Off the Ball, Declan Bogue is the latest on the Glen and Kilmacud Crokes controversy. We have extensive coverage of the National Football League after a brilliant opening weekend, while we have all the latest news on transfer deadline day. Michael Verney in the hot seat tonight. Delighted to be here. Mick McCarthy beside me. Mick, how are you?
Michael, how are you?
Good.
You're very welcome.
Thanks very much for welcoming me with open arms.
You've been in this seat a few times, but I don't know if you've ever been in that one.
No, it is as hot as they say.
It's as hot, even though it's a nice comfy new gaming chair that we've got in for that Malloy fella, the list of demands he put in his latest contract, Jesus Christ. But one of them was 3 weeks off in January, but you're in and enjoying it so far?
Yeah, enjoying it so
2
far.
minutes in?
2 minutes in, yeah. Well, too small and a hibber is now what they say, so happy to be off to a good start, yeah.
Well, it's great having you, and luckily, well, look, it just so happens that the calendar has packed our show with GEA tonight. So never has a man been more fitted to our running order as it stands. So we're talking about three different stories from the National League, and we're talking obviously about Kilmacud and Glen, because a show couldn't possibly go. We couldn't possibly go 2 days on the show without talking about that story.
No, it's the story that never goes away, the story that never stops,
saga,
isn't it?
The saga of all sagas at the moment, yeah.
It's an unbelievable saga, yeah, and it's one that'll be remembered for so long, realistically. Like, it's just, and it's gonna, the news cycle is just gonna keep going for another while yet. You'd see it could go to the DRA yet. So
are they still going?
They are still going. Not called into action too often these days, thank God, but maybe they'll be called into action in this instance.
Yeah. Ultimately, I know we're going to talk to Declan Bogue in a while, but are we going to see a replay? I
don't envisage a replay, to be honest with you,
yeah.
And I envisage Kilmacud holding on to the trophy as well.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, because I don't see Glen, taking it without beating Kilmacud Crokes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's fair. Like, I mean, I don't think anybody wants that particular scenario, but yeah, God, I don't know. I wouldn't mind another twist in this particular tale yet. I know some people might be getting sick of it, but I don't know. All we need now is we need an angry man or woman somewhere to just come out and really, really stir it a little bit, just to kind of get, some would say that feelings have been, that people have been a little bit angry, maybe a little bit hurt at times. I think we just need to escalate that a little bit.
Well, Rhino Dwyer aside, we haven't really heard from anyone involved in Crokes, and he's a past Crokes
not on
player
air anyway.
Not on air, no. So like that's how the story potentially moves on, I would think.
Yeah. Maybe Crokes need to have their say.
We have Richie Richie McCormack in the background. Richie, how are you?
Michael, are we well?
No hat tonight.
No hat tonight. I'm actually paying the price for it as well. Feeling follicularly without and bereft at the moment. As this stretches on, and as we reach the kind of point in this story whereby Crokes don't want to replay, there's whispers that Glen don't even want to replay in all of this, and you could have a situation where this has a massive asterisk beside it because of the situation involved. I don't want to spread this story further, but a penny for the thoughts of the likes of Karen Zarahlis and Mike Cullen, who lost in the semi-finals and now find themselves watching two ball lads scrap over a comb without wanting to stretch the theory too far, because they don't want to contest the final. So if you're going back in the tournament, surely there's two other teams that would have loved to have been in this position that are kind of looking on with envy / scorn at this stage. But the whole thing, Like when it was just last night when I was waiting on words to come through from the CCCC, my playmate, that 9 days, 10 days, whatever we are now into this thing is way too long. Like if the GA said that they didn't want to bring a situation whereby every refereeing decision is brought into, the contentious nature, and they didn't want to have everybody having their own hearing. But this isn't case in point as to why the GA should have grasped this by the horns from the night this happened. I don't know what else is.
Well, I think it's basic public relations, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think you come out and try and beat the story and control the narrative, whereas we're still talking about it. What are we talking? 9 days later now at this stage?
Saying, yeah. And we've another 6 to go, I think, isn't it? It's because isn't there like 3 days for Kilmacud to make their appeal, and then another 3 days for that to be heard. So we're probably me and you were talking before we came on air about the great GA sagas. We're talking about like Claire Offaly. We're talking about maybe Tony Keady and his suspension for the All-Ireland semi-final. There's 1 or 2 more. Joe Sheridan and the Meath Louth Leinster final. Have any of them gone on this long?
Well, the Offaly Clare one in '98 was like the next
6 days later.
The next day, like the decision was made the next day. Some of the Offaly lads said were enjoying themselves. I think even I think Johnny Pilkington has gone on record to say he didn't go to training that night, and he didn't actually think to be a replay on. And I think he'd had a few pints that morning. But it was the following Saturday in Thurles. I don't know if you were there, Mick. I was there. One of the greatest GA occasions of all time. And it was just apologies. Yeah, obviously my parochialism comes into it here. But I've never seen anything like that. And if Glen and Kilmacud Crokes was replayed, the swell of momentum and support that there was towards Offaly then, it was just a sense of inevitability almost, that we were, as to kind Gerlach Nan's phrase, that we were going to do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It just felt like everything was building towards it. And from a Clare point of view, they'd put in a great performance the week before. It was null and void basically. Then they had to lift themselves again for that following Saturday, and they weren't able to.
And it is why this is different, right? And this is loud for me to say it, right? I think Clare would have won that day, absolutely. I'd stand by that until I die. But we'll never know, because there wasn't enough time played, right? And anything can happen in the game of hurling, and it wasn't cut and dry. We just had to play that game again. There's no doubt about it. I think from Kilmacud's point of view here, the chances of somebody scoring a goal with the last kick of the game, no matter how many people were on the pitch, is just so small, that they feel like they won that All-Ireland and they won it legitimately, and they made a balls of a small thing at the end, and now they're being punished for it and they're being vilified for it. And all joking aside about anger and stuff like that, of course you see where they're coming from, of course. And do we need a replay to decide who won that match the way we did in '98? I don't think we do. But at the same time, from Glen's point of view, like, a really fundamental rule was broken, be it accidentally or not. And that's why this one is kind of, I think that's why it's not as cut and dry as that, and that's why it has gone on 9 days and counting, and there's hard feelings on both sides now and hurt feelings on both sides. So I don't know what the end point is. Is it just Kilmacud refusing to do it and Glen saying fine, we accept that, we just wanted to make a point? I don't know. That feels like they've come this far.
They'd never accept the trophy.
No, they definitely won't. They definitely won't be like declared All-Ireland champions by default or whatever.
No, I can't see it. And Pennyford thought of the Louth lads 13 years ago as well, where some justice is going to be served here either way. Offaly got justice, I would say, in '98. The late Tony Keady didn't get any justice at all, and Galway, the chances Galway had of doing a 3 in a row in '89. I think before he passed, he made a remark that on his headstone he would like it to say should have been playing in '89, and that's how big of a deal it was at the time. And there was other players that maybe involved on the other side, and they were playing Tipperary, that were in a similar boat, but maybe weren't reported to the level that Tony was, and he couldn't play that game. Richie, where would it stand for you as regards great GA sagas or controversies, or even pulling in controversies or sagas in some other sports?
Yeah, it's up there. It's just the GA's nature to drag the arse out of these things. Like the fact that we mentioned that this could go to the Central Appeals Committee and could go to the Disputes Resolution Authority. Like, is there any other major sporting body that has 3 layers of judgment involved in it? Like, 2 is probably too many. 3 is just lunacy, especially with some of the cases that are involved, and it's just tends to sour the opinion of all sides, no matter what the case is, regards the eventual outcome. And like, there's no need for 3 layers of appeal to this thing here. It's just, it's sad and needs to be wrapped up and could have been wrapped up much sooner.
Yeah.
Which would have stopped frustration on both sides and probably stopped boredom of those who aren't involved directly in it.
Yeah, there are no winners in this, only losers. You'd have. We're
in a position now where I think there's just like people are just going to be. Like, is upset the wrong word? But I feel like it is. I think people are just going to be upset about this forever now on both sides of this. You know what I mean? Kilmacud have won the All-Ireland, having lost one, the year before.
Yeah,
and
through the circumstances that that nearly happened again this time around.
Exactly. And, and that lives with them. And then to go and win it the year after, like, that's exactly the response you need. That should be the most famous day in that club's history. And instead it's infamous now. And it's always going to be. And I think they're just always going to be just so annoyed about that, even though they ultimately will have that name in the Roll of Honour, we think.
The Newsround is brought to you by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. You might just go into some of the details, Richie, about the Crokes Glen saga. We've talked about it a bit, but you might just go into the facts of the case.
Yeah, Mick, Kilmacud Crokes have 3 days to lodge an appeal after a replay was ordered for that All-Ireland club football final. The CCCC reached the decision following representations by Crokes and Glen at Croke Park last night. The Dublin club had 16 active players on the field, as we know, for the final play of the match, which they won by 2 points, and Crokes can take their case now to the Central Appeals Committee, and failing that, the Disputes Resolution Authority.
You'd love to know what the vibe was like between the two clubs being represented in Croke Park last night. Are there amicable conversations between them? Is there tension between them? Is there a lot of resentment towards the GA from both sides as well? It would be, you'd love to be a fly. You would love to be a fly on the wall in that room.
Yeah. Did you hear anything?
No, I see that, and the thing about this is it's such an information vacuum as well. If it does go to the DRA, the only way you'll hear about that is through an awful lot of digging or through knowing someone or having a source that's very high up. This stuff only filters down very gradually and slowly, usually after Barry, someone right at the coalface, Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, no, I think there's I just can't imagine there isn't. As I said, like, those hurt feelings haven't transferred into some sort of, I don't know, I'd say at least kind of like, if not kind of like dislike of each other, then at this stage distrust, I would say, at least. You would just, again, that's not with any information, I'm just saying that's almost by human nature, you would have to think that that's at that point. So you'd imagine it was quite a salty atmosphere.
I'd say it was.
In there last night,
I'd say it was. Richie, you some news about a Munster return, or John Ryan is in contention for the Ireland squad, I should say.
He appears to be, because John Ryan is going to be potentially included in the Ireland World Cup squad. Munster have confirmed that the prop will return to the province at the start of next season, having agreed a new 1-year contract. Ryan has been one of Munster's standout performers this term, having rejoined on a short-term basis from Wasps. The 34-year-old is spending the Super Rugby season with the Chiefs, but will return to Munster after that. In further contract news at Munster today, the Scannell brothers, Niall and Rory, have agreed new 2-year contracts, and Edwin Idogbo has agreed senior terms with Munster. The lock made his debut for the province earlier this season, going on to put in a string of impressive performances. 20-year-old Idogbo will remain an academy player next season, with a 2-year deal kicking in the summer of 2024.
Is it realistic, Mick, to think he could be included?
Yeah, I have to. It could be. Yeah, you're probably talking about that third. If everybody's fit, that third tight head slot is probably up for grabs behind Furlong and Beelum. So the way he's been playing so far this season, and the way he's been playing since he came back to Munster in particular, would suggest that it is an option. So we'd see. He'll have a lot of rugby under his belt. When he's playing, obviously the whole Super Rugby season. But it's an amazing thing, really, isn't it? He goes off, basically leave your international career behind, your Munster career behind, having, he's 34, having done it all, really, at Munster level anyway, goes to Wasps. Just for the next phase of your career, Wasps collapse, are no longer a club. You come back to Munster, you play the best rugby of your life, and you're kind of back in contention for your international side. It's a crazy story, really, isn't it? In that way, you would absolutely love to see him make it for the World Cup.
What a swan song that would be as well, coming towards the latter stages of
and
his
he is
career.
somebody that Roy O'Connor was talking about this a couple of weeks ago on the show. He is somebody that Farrell has used and has had in and around the squads and has caps under him. So it's not like he's someone that's in from the cold that hasn't got any experience in this setup or anything like that. So it's definitely far from a guarantee, but it's also a very strong possibility, I would say.
Richie, more rugby news. Warren Ball is back this weekend.
It is indeed, yeah. Warren Gatland naming his Wales side today to play Ireland in Saturday's Six Nations opener. Lee Halfpenny has been named to start at fullback, having not played for Wales since their summer international win over Canada in the summer of 2021. After impressing in his November debut against the Wallabies, there's a first Six Nations start for Ospreys centre Joe Hawkins. Having missed their autumn series through injury, Dan Biggar returns to start at out half. Outdoing Halfpenny's absence, Rhys Webb could make a first international appearance since the autumn of 2020, with the Ospreys scrum half among their replacements. Gatland has no issue, meanwhile, with his side being regarded as underdogs against his former employers this Saturday.
I think all the Welsh like to be underdogs, don't they? So, yeah, I suppose the expectation is only expectation that we put on ourselves, and we know how good a team they are, and you don't become number one team in the world without consistency and performance. A lot of players represented from Leinster, and obviously they're one of the form teams in World Club Rugby, really, just with their success and consistency of performances. So we realise what a challenge that's going to be, and they've got the continuity and being unbeaten in the autumn as well, the confidence they'll bring. So there's going to be a challenge for us, but that sort of underdog tag is something that found in the past that the Welsh boys kind of tend to relish, and they like people writing them off because it does tend to motivate them. And so hopefully I'm confident we're going to give a really good account of ourselves on Saturday and give a good performance.
Richie, where do you fall on the Six Nations in a World Cup year? Its importance and going gung-ho for Six Nations. Do you treat it as a normal Six Nations, or are you looking and awaiting that bigger picture and potentially, from an Ireland point of view, pulling back a couple of your big guys, the likes of Sexton, to make sure they're not overloaded in what's going to be a monster year? Yeah,
I think you have to regard it as a full tilt Six Nations, because just that notion of form. Like, if you do have a rough Six Nations, even if you are chopping and changing, you suddenly have that added thing of you're not in form, you haven't got a string of wins behind you, and you also suddenly don't know what your best 15 is. Whereas if you go out and play to your strengths, put out your best team possible, even with one or two slight alterations here and there, maybe against in Italy, you can navigate this thing with a great degree of calm and a great degree of surety, and then head off into the autumn when the World Cup rolls around with the utmost confidence. There's teams in a far worse position than us going into this Six Nations. France have had woeful injury worries. England have had woeful injury worries, and I don't think it's any coincidence that they both operate within two league structures that demand that they play in almost every game, whereas we've been able to mind our players that little bit better. Scotland, they're in a slight transitional phase in that they're trying to bring in players ahead of the World Cup. Wales have a little bit of that too, with Gatland coming back in and older players being reintegrated, and then building towards, I guess, the future under Gatland. Whereas I don't want to say we have a clear run at this thing, but if we do put out our strongest team week on week, there's every chance that we could win a Grand Slam, particularly the way the fixtures lie home and away, and then head off into the autumn with a great degree of confidence. But it doesn't make anything a certainty in the World Cup for sure. There seems to be a cloud hanging over every country in the Six Nations, bar us. Doesn't there? Exactly, like all that controversy with the Wales CEO at the weekend as well. Like we're the one team that seemed to be getting a fairly clear run. Richie, Tadhg Byrne has given some thoughts on what he expects from the Welsh. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, he set it up rather nicely there. Tadhg Byrne in facing the media today in Quinta do Lago in Portugal, where the Irish team remain until Thursday, and he has been asked what he expects from Wales this Saturday.
Well, I think everyone knows there's going to be a reaction out of them, isn't there? With Gatland back and a lot of new coaching staff gone in there, I think there's going to be a response to that, and I think they're at home. So no matter who's coaching Wales, when Wales are at home, they're a difficult team to play against. So I think they're going to come, they're going to try and be physical, and I can imagine they're planning on being direct. And I know that Gats has said that's part of the plan, is to come at us physically, because I think they can get an upper hand on us there. So we'll be expecting that, and we'll certainly be ready for it and be looking to hopefully get one up on them.
Richie, deadline day, always one of the busiest days in the soccer calendar. What is the latest? And I believe there's a big Irish news story as well.
There certainly is, yeah, and a surprising one too. Matt Doherty at the centre of one of deadline day's more surprising moves. The Republic of Ireland wing-back is in the Spanish capital, completing a loan move from Tottenham to Atletico Madrid. That should be done in the next couple of hours. He's been pictured at the Wanda Metropolitano already. Spurs have already sent Jed Spence out on loan to Rennes today as they make room for the impending confirmation of €45 million fullback Pedro Porro from Sporting. Marcel Sabitzer has arrived in England as he looks to complete a loan move to Manchester United from Bayern Munich. United are in need of depth in midfield with confirmation today that Christian Eriksen is out for up to 3 months with an ankle injury. Manchester City defender João Cancelo has denied that a poor relationship with manager Pep Guardiola is the reason behind his loan move to Bayern Munich. That got done today. Enzo Fernandez is reportedly undergoing a medical in Lisbon ahead of a proposed move to Chelsea. The Premier League club have offered a €120 million package for the Argentine World Cup winner. Arsenal on the verge of completing the £10 million signing of Jorginho from Chelsea. Chelsea's Hakim Ziyech is due to complete a loan move to Paris Saint-Germain tonight. And Nottingham Forest have resumed negotiations with PSG for a loan move for goalkeeper Keylor Navas. That one moving closer, according to John Percy in the past few minutes. Continuing on the team, Crystal Palace are set to sign Cork City's 17-year-old striker Franco Ume for €75,000. The Republic of Ireland under-19 international made his Cork debut in June of last year. Palace have also completed a loan move for Arsenal's Belgian midfielder Albert Sambi Lakonga. Former Republic of Ireland under-21 midfielder Gavin Kilkenny has joined Charlton today on loan from Bournemouth. Leeds at the centre of a couple of deals as well. They've confirmed defender Diego Llorente has joined Roma on loan until the end of the season with a view to an €18 million permanent deal. Newcastle have signed defender Harrison Ashby from West Ham for an undisclosed fee, and Leicester have sent Jose Perez on loan to Real Betis for the rest of the season.
I'm no football expert now, Mick.
I'm exhausted after that, Richie.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, and I'm sure you could probably keep going on for days and days, Richie. I'd say,
absolutely, yeah.
But the Doherty move is like that. I don't have a massive interest in soccer. I wouldn't be following it the whole time.
Yeah.
But like Atletico, like that's a big move for him, isn't it? It's an exciting move.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, you could argue that Spurs are at least on Atletico's level at the moment, if not slightly above them, just given the domination of the Premier League lately. But it's still a kind of it's at best at worst sideways. Like, I mean, it's not. It's if they're chucking them out the door, like, you kind of think that's down to mid-table Premier League or that sort of level. But to Atletico Madrid is it's a brilliant opportunity for him. There's not too many Irish guys who've gone abroad to like big clubs and have gone and made their mark. So it's like he's got the rest of the season now to do that at Atletico, and it's actually really exciting. I have to say, from like just an Irish point of view, whatever about Matt Doherty, like I'm more excited about watching him play for Atletico Madrid than I am under Conte at Spurs, So I presume most people feel that way. Do you, Richie?
Yeah, it's brilliant ingenuity from both him and his agent. I mean, you look at where Doherty's next move could have been had he stayed in England. You're probably talking about a mid-table to lower level Premier League side. So to head off to Atletico Madrid, probably on comparable terms to what he's on now at Spurs, like, it's a brilliant opportunity for him. Like, it absolutely is because Conte clearly doesn't have the utmost faith in him, otherwise he wouldn't be playing second string in a large part of this season to Emerson Royal. They're bringing in Pedro Porro as well, which suggests that even he isn't at the utmost of his thinking. So heading to somewhere like Atletico where he might get the opportunity, and there's no guarantee, he might still be playing second string there at right wing back, where he might get the opportunity to play several games in La Liga if he does well. And again, a big if. Like, who knows what the summer could bring for him? And it's I don't know, it's a fantastic opportunity for him and somewhere to increase his footballing vernacular ahead of going back to Stephen Kenny's squad too. For everyone concerned, I think a great move.
There's probably a place for an aspiring freelance out in Madrid, I'd say, to be an Irish freelance soccer reporter, to be getting all the scoops back and how Doherty is going and things like that. All you want now is a couple more joining maybe clubs close out there.
Well, I think we've already got at least two, but I think if you want to go and join and throw your hat into the ring, Michael, I think there'll be plenty of people looking for some Matt Doherty updates, I would imagine.
Richie, there's some Carabao Cup action tonight.
Yeah, and there is indeed. Newcastle will look to book a first League Cup final place since 1976. Tonight they're unchanged and take a 1-0 lead into tonight's second leg of their semi-final with Southampton. That's at St James's Park, where kick-off is at 8 p.m. After Saturday's draw at Ewood Park, Birmingham and Blackburn meet again tonight in their fourth round replay. Some Irish involvement, of course, in that Birmingham team. Scott Hogan starting up front, Kevin Long at the heart of their defence, and a fifth round trip to Leicester awaits the winner, and there is a 7:45 start at St Andrews.
Plenty of tennis news going around as well.
Yeah, some serious bits and pieces knocking around today in the wake of the Australian Open. Former men's number 2 Alexander Zverev won't face disciplinary action following an ATP investigation into allegations of domestic abuse. Insufficient evidence was found to substantiate claims made by the German's ex-girlfriend. Zverev was accused of physical and emotional abuse in 2020, which he denies. Novak Djokovic, meanwhile, will be allowed to compete at this year's US Open. The men's world number 1 was forced to miss last year's tournament at Flushing Meadows as he remained unvaccinated against COVID-19. However, it's been confirmed that the USA will lift its COVID emergency measures on May the 11th. Djokovic, though, will still miss the Miami Open and Indian Wells in March, so it's unlikely he'll actually return to the US until the lead up to the Open in September.
Mick, where do you stand on the tennis GOAT debate? Djokovic is now joint top with Rafa with 22 after his 10th Australian Open at the weekend. He mightn't be the most liked, shall we say, but my God, he gets the results.
Yeah, it's definitely it's getting harder and harder, I suppose, to exclude him from that debate. I think in the hearts and minds of people, there's a Federer and Nadal sort of are just slightly a level above, but I don't know if it's actually backed up by evidence, really. You know, now he is obviously that little bit younger, and you have to remember that for, you know, Djokovic's or for Nadal's whole career, he had either Federer or Djokovic there. You know, Federer maybe had a year or two on his own at the start, and now Djokovic is going to have, while Nadal is obviously still on tour, and, you know, if he's fit enough, will probably win the French Open. You know, Djokovic is basically on his own, and it just seems more and more obvious that nobody is coming to challenge him until he has a severe decline. Because I don't know what is going on with tennis, but maybe these guys were just so far and away better than everybody else in history that the level below them is just the same and nobody can get to it until they go away, or there's been a sharp decline in the level of tennis around the world because nobody is anywhere close to him at the moment.
He's 35 and he won the Australian Open with a hamstring injury as well.
Yeah, which is, I know, and it was never in doubt. Like, I mean, there was people clutching at straws in the second set, you know, and I was like, lads, come on, he's one set up here. He won the second set, I think, in the end. And yeah, there was, as I said, it's clutching at straws at this stage.
Richie, thanks a million for joining us.
Nice, Mick.
And we will be back after the break with Declan Bogue on the latest. He is the latest on the Kilmacud Crokes Glen controversy.
Your chance to win big. NewsTalk's cash machine.
We had another big winner on the cash machine today when Ciara Duffy in Limerick answered the call and thankfully had the right number written down. The cash machine has been reloaded tonight, and this is the new number you need to know: €20,481 and 21